down. So after pondering and planning how to get around these gargantuans, it was evident that I had to climb up, walk one like a bridge, jump to the next tree, and then go underneath the third. Well, that's the game plan. Here we go. So up I went, and all was going according to plan. Over the tree like a bridge, and then I jumped to the second tree and landed perfectly, while still balancing okay thanks to my trekking poles and my light pack for the day. But then as I jumped off the second tree, it happened again. This time, however, it was only a 4-inch slice on the side of my other leg as I landed across a small little stub of a branch. More blood. Not gashes exactly, but slices that are all still there more than a week later as I sit here writing and recording this very episode. And to make matters worse, I then had to get on all fours and crawl under the final tree. But not before that tree also took a swipe at me as well, slicing yet again another 4-inch cut down the front of my calf this time. Man, pants would have been a way better option than shorts today. Can I get an amen? But too bad, I'd rather take the cuts and wear shorts because winter is right around the corner. Let's not pretend. Shorts weather is very short here in the ADK. Yeah, there's some climbing coming up here in my future. And thanks to all the blowdown on this trail. Oh, another spider web. Man, thanks to the blowdown, my legs have 3 really nice slices. They drew first blood. Oh, yes, they are. Oh, yeah, those are some nice size slices, unfortunately. All right, and some more blowdown to navigate. But I will say, it is rather crazy how many cuts and bruises I took today from this basically medium-sized little hike with 0 bushwhacking. But I survived the gauntlet and carried on over the ridge as the summit of Moose was visible above the trees up in front of me and looking as enormous as ever. So as the ridge ends and just before walking down into the col, before beginning the final climb to the summit, I came to the junction as expected for the mountain called Loch Bonnie. Only something was missing. The Moose Mountain Summit 0.6 mile sign was nowhere to be found. It wasn't on the tree as I expected it to be. Then upon looking around the area, I saw the sign had fallen off the tree and was on the ground. So after some quick thinking and the desire for this sign to get put back up as to not be lost, and so people don't accidentally go to Loch Bonnie, which at this point isn't much of a trail due to so much blowdown over the years, I don't recommend going over there. But I came up with a genius yet simple plan. I would reattach the wooden Moose Summit signs to the already hanging Lake Trail sign with some zip ties that I always have in my backpack. So I reached into my backpack and grabbed my zip ties. Number 11 on the 10 essentials list, as I always joke. I always say that zip ties should have made that list because they're so insanely useful in so many situations, and everyone should have a bunch of them in their backpacks at all times. Fixing broken backpacks, broken snowshoes, broken zippers, broken tents, or even broken trail signs. They're just super clutch to have. Highly recommend. So I threw a couple zip ties together, and then I zip tied the moose sign back up onto the tree. And now hikers everywhere will continue being on the correct path to Moose Mountain. I do wish I had 2 more because I needed a couple more to do the other end, but I did what I could with what I had. So if you do find yourself going up Moose, bring a few extra zip ties and, show that sign a little extra love. But at this point, it was 12:15 p.m., about an hour and 20 minutes, and roughly 3 miles into the hike, and it was time to head down into the col for the final ascent to Moose. The past half-a-mile ridge walk is basically flat, so by this time, I was ready to climb, and it was time to just send it to the summit. So, up I went. I climbed and climbed and climbed some more. This is your typical Adirondack final push to the summit where you gain a bunch of elevation right before the summit. One of the bummers about Moose, I will say, is you have minimal to no views until you're at the summit. So there's not a lot of times to turn around and just admire the scenery. So with that, I just climbed. My back felt good, the knees felt good, everything was working, thankfully. Just, spiderweb after spiderweb going in my mouth and in my eyes and in my face. Just the usual stuff, really. Extra scratched up legs, but otherwise good. And since the woods up here are all evergreens, you just get that beautiful smell of spruce and pine trees all over the place. Oh, it is heavenly. And if you spend a lot of time in the Adirondacks, you know exactly the smell that I'm talking about. Ah, beautiful. It is an amazing aroma. It truly is. One leg in front of the other, I kept pushing up to the summit, over the dirt path. Then I found myself walking along the cliff to the summit. And boom, I was now on top, where you're met with a trail sign saying to the right will take you to Loch Bonnie, 0.5 miles, or left to the true summit, towards McKenzie. So, turned left, and then a few steps later I came out onto the amazing lookout with that figure-8 shape of Lake Placid Lake directly below, while I stare at the high peaks right in front of me. The McIntyre Range, Marcy, Colden, Phelps, Tabletop, Big Slide, Cascade. All the heavy hitters were there. In case you aren't familiar with Moose, when you drive away from the Adirondack Lodge and you get to the end of the Lodge Road at Route 73, you know, when you see the ski jumps, Moose and McKenzie are the two big mountains that you're staring at right in front of you in the distance. So now you know. Lake Placid basically sits in the valley between the high peaks and Moose and McKenzie. But after a beautiful morning in the woods, 12:45 p.m., just under 2 hours since leaving my car, I was on top of Moose Mountain. Hello, Moose. We meet again. 3,898 feet up in the clear, blue, windless, bird-filled Adirondack mountain sky. Well, it's 12:55. I started hiking exactly 2 hours ago from my car here on the summit of Moose all by myself. One of my favorite summit views, period. It's absolutely incredible. On both sides of the summit is totally different views, which is incredible. But feeling good. It's a nice day. Bugs are absolutely vicious, but I'm going to throw a curveball here and get a little spontaneous, even though this whole hike was, and I am going to do the Moose-McKenzie Traverse. I'm coming for you, McKenzie. All right, I'm going to go take this trail off the summit of Moose towards McKenzie along the entire ridge. Here we go. What I love about the summit of Moose in particular is that you get two drastically different views from two different viewpoints just footsteps away. Off one side, looking south, you have the high peaks and Lake Placid down below, and then you walk to the other lookout to the north side of the summit, and you can see to the end of the planet, it feels like, with great views of Whiteface, Catamount, and all the way into Canada. It's pretty awesome. Just an incredible view worth every hike, every time, and it's always a pleasure wandering through these mysterious woods that make up Moose Mountain. One thing that made this summit unfortunate, as is to be expected, bugs. Oh yes, the black flies were rough up here. They actually weren't bad on the hike today, until the summit though, so I've had much worse. But since I felt good, and since I didn't want my hike to just feel like it's over, in a sense, by just going right back down where I just climbed, and the adventure feeling complete and now just getting into gotta get back to my car, must get back to my car mode, I decided to make a game time decision and finally do that Moose-McKenzie Ridge Traverse that I've eyeballed for years. And I figured, I feel good, it's really sunny, it's early, and I'm already right here on top of Moose Mountain. Now is the time. Let's do it. So I quickly called the wife, told her my plan, and off I went for the very first time. Instead of turning back around, I was finally going back down into the woods over the other side of the summit, onto a trail that I've never experienced, and thus, the adventure continues. The trail really looks sketchy as you stand on top of Moose, looking to where you climb down to. It's very overgrown, but once committing and walking over the ridge to the other side and down through that overgrowth, it felt like it was a doorway. Like I broke through the doorway, back into the tree line, and into a whole new world that opened up right before my very eyes. It was like a gate. It was delightful. The trail looked pristine, plenty of trail markers, and I just knew instantly, yeah, this was the right call. So I probably dropped off the summit about maybe like 8 minutes ago, cruising on down the trail, super defined, just like the rest of the trail, though albeit a little bit overgrown. That's all right. Very well marked. These SOA trails, man, they're just really good. They're really nice. But so far, this is a delightful trail and some nice, colorful, albeit kind of dead woods. But it's great though. This was definitely a nice decision thus far. Getting to see some new trail that I've never been on, but I've been eyeballing for a long time. Nice weather, nice cool temperature. It's probably like low 60s, mid 60s up here. So far so good. A lot of blowdown though. A lot of blowdown and some very fresh blowdown to navigate through, which I'm going to have to do right now. So over and out. But to go above or below the tree, that is the question. So I was stoked to finally be walking this ridge, one that I've stared at forever. And it's funny because the trail over Moose and the ridge really does mirror coming up the other side of the mountain that I love so much. I felt in a way like I had just gone back down the side that I came up because it was roughly the same elevation drop and the woods were basically the same. The trail was similar. But one thing that differed was that the woods constantly changed during this ridge walk. Sometimes you're in an old, busted up war zone woods that the trail skirts through, and then more open areas with ferns again lining both sides of the brown dirt path, maybe 20 inches wide, and then moments later, back to blowdown ridden spots, and even stretches that had grass growing on both sides of the dirt trail. It was great, well marked, a terrific experience walking through these woods as I traveled from Moose to McKenzie. And if you're familiar with the high peaks, it had a similar feel as the hike between Dial and Nipple Top. It reminded me of hiking between those two high peaks. But the birds were out in full force, the bugs were minimal, wind minimal, temps in the mid-60s, just flawless. I will say, since I didn't plan to do the whole loop when I started, I did wish that I would have had a little more water and a little more snacks. So I had to eat and drink that sparingly. But fortunately, because I am a textbook overpacker in general, I did have enough fuel for the trek. And this ridge walk also comes with wooden SOA trail signs every half a mile or so, letting you know how far from Moose and how far from McKenzie you are. So it's just fantastic, really. Just passed a sign saying that I am now 1.25 miles away from McKenzie and 1.85 away from Moose. So I'm over halfway. And there was also a sign pointing you to a nice view, which is cool. And the signs out here are brown with white lettering. They're not the normal kind of DEC trail signs you're used to seeing here in the 80K. But yeah, it's nice that they pointed out a nice view, and it was nice. Also made McKenzie look so much further away than 1.25 miles. The trail thus far, since leaving Moose, has been like a mirror of the other side of Moose. It's like coming down was just like the last section going up. So it was pretty much like the same type of trail. Really nice. Tons of SOA trail markers. This trail is really well maintained, this ridge trail. Nice and flat. Well, you know, a little bit of elevation changes, obviously, but overall a nice, delightful walk. Walking through a lot of areas with ferns, and then a lot of moss-covered everything in some other stretches of the woods. So far, pretty nice. About to do a nice little climb. But yeah, haven't seen another person yet today, but everything's going smoothly, fortunately. And now here's yet another SOA trail marker. And there I am, just a dude walking through the woods for 3 miles between two mountains. Nothing more, nothing less. One step in front of the other. Then I came to the final climb to take me up McKenzie. Still no sign of other humans on the day yet, but that would change once I was at the summit. Just stopped for a swig and a snack. Passed a sign. I am 0.8 miles from